Continuing with the principles of tooth preparation, today let's see about the structural durability. What we exactly mean by this particular principle. In this picture, you can see the first one tells you it's inadequate. The second one is adequate. So what has happened is during preparation, the cuspal contours were not followed and there was no adequate preparation. Also, the functional cusp bevel was not given. So you can see the net result, the preparation is inadequate. And if you fabricate a crown on that impression, you're going to get a restoration which is weak. There will not be adequate material, and then it will lead to perforation or fracture. So whenever we prepare the tooth structure, make sure that there is adequate clearance for the metal or the ceramic material which is going to form the restoration. So you can see in the second picture, there is an overall good tooth reduction, and the functional cusp also has been beveled, and the restoration will function for a long time in the patient's mouth without failing. So the preparation should follow the natural contours of the tooth. Don't just make it flat, because God has designed the human teeth in such a way that it has got a good cuspal morphology that will help to make the food bolus into small pieces. So if you make it flat, the occlusion will not be proper. So that is why we have the cuspal morphology. Try to maintain the cuspal morphology. Otherwise, the technician will find it difficult to build it up during the wax up stages. So it is the duty of the dentist who is preparing the tooth structure to maintain the cuspal morphology. And once the tooth has been prepared, it should just look like a miniature replica of the tooth which was already present. So just making it smaller to welcome the crown. Okay. The functional cusp should be beveled. Usually in mandible, the functional cusp is the buccal cusp, and in maxilla, palatal cusp is the functional cusp. So that is where exactly the load is going to come and fall. The brunt, the brunt of the force is going to be taken up by the functional cusp, the palatal cusp of upper and the buccal cusp of lower. So see that you bevel that surface so that we have adequate material, the restorative material, the ceramic or the metal. And in turn, it will be able to withstand the occlusive forces without fracture. So here in this picture, you can see the functional cusp. It has not been beveled. And in turn, the restoration is weak in that junction. And definitely, this will fail. This will go for perforation and fracture. If you have not provided a functional cusp, and if the technician tries to build up that area, that will also lead to faulty occlusion, because you can see the crown is over contoured there, and in this area there is lack of contact. So this is also not possible, because if you provide a crown, if you fabricate a crown like this, this is going to hurt the temporomandibular joint, because this is an interference, a premature contact onto which the patient will start chewing, and immediately it is going to manifest as probably within 3 days or within a week, patient is going to come back to you and say that this jaw is hurting on this side. So this is exactly the reason why we have to prepare the functional cusp, bevel it at the time of tooth preparation. And don't let the technician do that job for you, because that is going to land up in over-contoured restorations. Also, the over-inclination or the taper. Over-taper, we have discussed previously, that lead to lack of retention. Axial reduction. Axial reduction, you can see if it is improper, the walls of the restoration will be weak, or it will be over bulbous or over contoured, and it will lead to plaque accumulation and then lead to secondary caries, etc. So you have to prepare the tooth structure adequately. Marginal integrity. This is achieved by preparing the margins in such a way that the restoration has close proximity with the finished margin which you have created. The finished margin will dictate the shape and bulk of the restorative material. So coming to the different types of finish lines which we usually give, we have the shoulder, we have the radial shoulder, we have the chamfer, we have the chamfer with bevel, we have the feather edge, etc. So depending upon the restoration which we are going to keep, let's see the different types of finish margins. This is a shoulder margin which is given in the case of a ceramic restoration, because all of us know that ceramic is a brittle material, and if you fabricate a ceramic crown which doesn't have sufficient bulk, definitely it is going to fracture. Also, you can expect half moon fracture, ceramic chipping off from the cervical aspect of the labial surface of the tooth structure because of inadequate bulk in that area. Also, if you give flat and tapering margin, 90-degree margin, chances for stress concentration is more, and you can expect a half moon fracture. So this can be overcome if you can give a good shoulder margin, preferably a radial shoulder margin. And the burr which we use for fabricating, creating a radial shoulder margin is a radial shoulder burr. It can be tungsten carbide burr, which can be used later on for finishing it. Also, diamond burrs are available to fabricate, to create a radial shoulder margin. So ceramic restorations, when we consider, go for a shoulder margin, preferably a radial shoulder. This is the radial shoulder margin, which is a better margin for a ceramic restoration. So this is exactly not at 90-degree, this small curve there. So that will prevent the stress concentration. Also, number of exposed enamel rods will be very less, and the patient coming back to you with sensitivity will be less if you use a radial shoulder burr. So that is the advantage. Stress concentration is less. Also, sensitivity due to preparation of tooth will be less if you use a radial shoulder margin. In case the patient is coming back to you with sensitivity, you should think about using immediate dentin sealants, which can be applied on the tooth structure. That will take care of the problem. Shoulder with bevel is usually considered when the dentist on a later date wants to remove the restoration. So this is usually given on the palatal aspect or the lingual aspect where it is not shown. So shoulder is given, and on top of that, that surface is bevel, and in that, on that surface, metal is finished. So if you want to remove the restoration, you can engage the crown remover onto that metallic surface and try to tap it or try to remove it. Because if you engage the crown remover on a ceramic surface, chances that the ceramic can chip off. And that can lead to, like, it may then want to repair the ceramic. It is not easy. And even if you repair it, chances for fracture is more. So think about giving a shoulder with bevel. We want to later on remove the restoration without fracture.